Welcome everyone to Decoding Your Customers, unveiling insights using the AI-driven workflow of the future. We are going to be using some existing tools and plugging them into some AI features to really superpower them here today. But I'm very confident you will discover a lot of new tools you haven't used before, unless you're really deep into the AI community and you spend all day on Twitter, or X as it's now called. And this is going to be freestyled. I have it set for an hour 15. Could go a little shorter, could go a little longer. I don't mind staying longer to answer some additional questions, but I really want to tailor this to your needs and really make an impact in your business and your product team while we're here spending time together today. And what we're going to be covering today is the typical research process and operations of how to conduct a customer discovery call using these tools, as well as a usability study. And this is primarily aimed at the Lisa founders, and that's where they are in their journey right now. They're really just building out their personas, understanding their customers' needs and pain points and wants. But if you were further in your research, like an evaluative study, like evaluating the usability of a website or evaluating up market stuff like that, and anything you really want to do that's not covered here today, you would just plug in more tools and methods to the existing methods and tools we're going to cover. So this is still useful for you, even if you're really advanced in your business, even if you're an enterprise or something like that. And the tools we're going to be using are some are novel, some are already existing, like Figma, just plugged in. All of them are pretty easy to use. We can go over a lot of basics and stuff like that. That's going to be in the live work flow portion of the presentation. So no worries. If anything, this is just going to help you and your product team going forward. And lastly, we have a Q&A that can be throughout the presentation. If you have any questions after each slide, just type them, raise your hand. I'll take a look at the Zoom. It may be easier if you actually just unmute yourself and talk because it's on my second monitor. So that will make things easier. There are some new faces I haven't seen before. So hello, I'm Nick Lamella. I'm the previous founder of a VC-backed startup in the XR space, but most recently I was head of experience for a startup. For the past 6 years, I've been in the product and sales space and I've interfaced with customers every day, mainly in a UX research and UI format, usability testing and stuff like that. But I also have done sales, boots on the ground support and stuff like that. And over the past 6 years, this has led me to conduct over 300 user interviews. So I know it can go good, I know it can go wrong, and everywhere in between. And a lot of the problems you may face, I've probably faced before. So I'm happy to share that knowledge with you and ensure your success early in your entrepreneurship journey. And for the past year, I've helped founders and product teams revolutionize their workflow using the AI tools and other tools that we'll talk about later. So if you find this interesting, I'm available for work. Let's chat. And when I'm not doing that, I'm usually going too fast on a snowmobile, enjoying my free time. So where we're at in the Lisa founders and early on in your entrepreneurship journey, a great way to think about framing your research and how to actually approach it going from 0 to 1 is the 5 Ws 1 H framework. Now, any product managers or product designers in the call are probably familiar with this framework before, but I like to really call it the 6 Ws 1 H framework because this Y at the bottom here is repeated twice. So when you're framing your questions in your research, not only are the important metrics that whatever your KPIs are or your personal things that you want to uncover your insights, you need to really be thinking about who are your target users, whether that's, let's say, your Airbnb, for example, all the personas, you need to encompass all of them. So that's the cleaning staff, that's the host, that's the renter, anyone involved in that entire journey. You need to think about who is involved, all of them, all encompassing in that journey, what problems they're having. This is also what you will aim to solve. When is this problem occurring? And when are they using your product? What are the triggers? What are the time of day? Really paint that picture in your head. You want to know as much as you can about these people and be able to know it like the back of your hand when you're talking to investors, when you're talking to other stakeholders and stuff like that. And this framework really gets you there and will really uncover that for you. And where is also really important, and it's also twofold. So it's where they're using the product, but also what device they're using it on. So whether it's on their phone at a bar, in the train, just on their AirPods, stuff like that is very important. So you need to know the where as well as the why. So why should they be using your product? But also here's the why that's not listed, is why are they having that problem? So that's very important. That's really how you should go about framing your research questions, and we will go over that further and really understand what motivates them and combine this to, and which will lead to getting your first value proposition or establishing a new one and building on top of your existing value proposition. So then this is really the first part of your research is going to be the desk research. And that's going to be your market research, identifying your competitors and getting an audit of what works for them, what doesn't, and noting down as well as what you feel, have your entire team go through the product, what you feel works for them, what doesn't. Really get your entire company involved, all your co-founders, stuff like that, and maybe do a SWOT analysis if you find it useful. So we'll be going over a tool today to conduct a lot of market research quickly and effectively. An additional possibility to be aware of is web scraping. There are a lot of tools for that, but it's a little bit out of scope for today. But if there's enough interest, I may go over that. We'll be using SimilarWeb to go over comparing competitors' websites and metrics. I have a spreadsheet template set up so you can conduct this UX audit and market research effectively and quickly. We'll be using Social Blade to go over their social media metrics. And Grammarly is just a standard grammar AI that everyone should be using to not make spelling mistakes when they frame these questions and talk to others. And I have an additional info about doing UX audits. So to get started, we'll be heading over to Perplexity. So what Perplexity is, it is a large language model. It's actually three of them combined. So if we go here in the settings, this is, if you're familiar with GPT, is very similar. It works in the same way. This is a multimodal tool. So you could hand it videos, images, and PDFs, and you can actually select the model you want to use. Perplexity model for optimized for fast search. That's what we're going to be using here today. GPT-4, I'm sure everyone here has used it at some point. Claude 2.1, which is also really good. It has more human-like language than GPT. In an experimental 7 billion parameter model, which we're not going to touch because that is a little buggy at the moment. So we'll be using default. Now, this is really good for conducting your market research. So for instance, I can just say, what is the TAM of the health supplement market by 2030? And what really separates this from other large language model tools, please for the health supplement market, we'll do protein shakes. What really separates this from other LLMs is that it will actually cite the sources that it gets, which is very important when you're going to build decks and talk to investors and other teammates. So here I can see the sources that it scraped when it was being trained. It's got Grandview Research, which is very reputable, Global Newswire, a little less so, LinkedIn, Yahoo, and a bunch of PR posts. Here we can see the answer, total addressable market for protein supplements, including shakes. So this is a great way to get started when you're conducting your market research. And what this is actually really replacing is doing your Google foo, as they used to call it. I would have to Google and go to all of these websites, note it down in a Google sheet, save it, then synthesize it. This is doing that all for me. And as I can see, it's how do I know where these numbers are, safe and I can use them? I can just click on this and see if it's the same page because some of the time it may hallucinate and link you to another page. So I can see 19.3 billion by 2030. And some of them may be paywalled, but this one isn't. This is a good kind of preview to use. So I can use this to do some market research. I can also use it to, if I want to put this into an image, I can generate an image based on this, a diagram, can generate a diagram based on this, anything what you really want to do. And just keep in mind, you can hand it text or PDFs or anything like that. Something interesting that I was just doing is if you want to, someone hands you a PDF, if no one's done this already, you could chat with your PDFs. Here I handed it a usability report that I did for a client, and without actually looking at it, if you didn't even know about it, it will just tell you everything that was in there. So PDF was for Dune Analytics, which is all true, August 9th to August 16th, 2022. And the final result of it was that I needed to conduct more interviews with both personas, performing A/B tests and stuff like that. So you can hand it PDFs, make proposals with this tool, but it's most useful for doing research. It can tell you the history of things, and your results may vary if you change the model. So this is just using the placeholder, stuff like that, what it suggested. So it'll give you images of that to build your slide deck for pitching. It'll give you all these metrics, and these are all saved, of course, so these never go away. It's on cloud storage, as well as they have an app that's a mobile app. So I encourage everyone to use this. It's very useful. This is a paid tool, so just be aware of that. And of course, this works with typical prompting strategies, which we'll get into further in the presentation here. But I just wanted to make everyone aware of this tool, that this is probably the best market research tool available today for an early stage startup. And without going to the next slide, do we have any questions?
Just a question, like in comparison with the GPT-4, it has everything there included. So it's a Llama 2, so and also GPT-4. It's like combo of three LLMs in one tool.
Yes, yes. So you can access all LLMs in one tool. There's not Llama 2 in this. There's Perplexity's own foundational model, Claude 2.1, GPT-4, and their own original. This is more experimental with the more parameters. But if we do Claude, it's and it's one payment for all of them. So I pay 20 bucks a month for this tool. I also pay for all of them individually. A little bit repeated, but whatever. So if I want to learn about Elon Musk in a university, this is using the Claude model to output the text. And some people say that Claude has more human-like language than GPT. I do tend to agree with that. However, it is a little bit more annoying and finicky to deal with. Sometimes the outputs, it just doesn't want to output certain things. So if you've used that, I'm sure you're aware of it. But yes, for one price, you can access all of those. Unfortunately, there is no Llama in this, but I hope they add it soon.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So now we'll be moving forward into SimilarWeb, which is a great tool to track website traffic. But the most important thing we're going to be going over for early stage is doing your competitive analysis matrix. Now, this is taken from a book, Jamie Levy's book, UX Strategy. I encourage everyone to read that. It's a very helpful book. This is what I use to analyze for one of my previous projects using AI agents for work. And what you're going to do is you're going to find out your main direct competitors here, probably no more than 5 to 10, I recommend. You're going to list the URL of it, put the login credentials for your team so they can all go through as well. Identify their main value proposition, put it there, their year founded, their funding rounds, revenue streams, as well as monthly traffic. Now that's where SimilarWeb comes in, or App Annie to track their mobile downloads. If you find another tool that seems somewhat accurate, I encourage you to use that as well. I'm just listing the most popular tools here. The number of listing items users. So if they're on a marketplace, I would encourage you to do all of it. So in general, I know it's hard to source all of the listings, for instance, on eBay. Find a general ballpark amount. Their ballpark users, posts, listings, and items, their primary categories. So what that would be like marketplace, entertainment, whatever industry category they're in. If they're playing in multiple, I would say use their top three, all the social platforms they're active on, and what content type they do post on there, their personalization features in their experience. So if we're talking about YouTube, for example, they have personalized videos recommended in the algorithm. They also have your subscriptions. You can subscribe to people, tip, stuff like that. Everything that is personal that you can do on YouTube that after you sign in, for example, I would add that there. Their community or user generated content features. UGC is all the rage these days, so I expect these boxes to be highly filled out. This template will be available. I'll share it for free after. Everything in here is mostly free, fortunately, for that SimilarWeb tool. Competitive advantage or key features. So this is going to be the competitive advantage they have over your existing product, the region they operate in. The heuristic evaluation you could skip for now. That is actually a completely separate UX and product thing that you would have to spend a little bit more time on. I encourage you to complete this first and then go back. So what that's going to be is basically getting an entire design checklist and seeing what things they pass and what they don't. For instance, going through their sign up page, going through their product, trying to churn on the product, how easy is it to cancel an account, how hard it is. Taking note of everything would be an account of that. Really try and scrape their customer reviews. So Better Business Bureau is great. Trustpilot is great. Google Reviews is great. If they're in like the restaurant industry, for example, Yelp is also a great option. Their general notes here, I would send this to your team. Your entire team, at least the product team, should go through this and share their own personal notes. And then you share your personal notes on this side, and then a SWOT analysis if you feel it's useful. However, that can take a lot of time, and in my opinion, it's a slightly repetitive to come to what we're already going over here. So this spreadsheet will really inform your research going forward and set the tone for your entire product team. Another thing we'll be using is Social Blade. Now, this is a free tool completely. So what we'll be doing is if I want to just hand over the Stanford YouTube and I could track their metrics. So if I just go to the Stanford YouTube, copy paste that here, and I could track their growth or their degrowth, for example. So I can see they have Stanford 0609. That's interesting. So I don't know why it listed me this random user. That is weird. So there we go. This is what it looks like. I'm getting a copy and paste. I'm getting a cat video on some other Stanford's profile, but you can use this for Twitter, you can use this for YouTube and Instagram. Those are the main three that I would recommend you use this for. So you can see their social grade rank. This is basically based on all of these metrics encompassing. Their music rank is a little separate, but the most helpful part of this is for the graph. So their monthly gained and monthly lost, as well as tracking their posts and subscribers. It's the same view for all Twitter as well as Instagram. So it's no matter what you put in, you're going to get this view. And I see here, yes, that is the book, Jamie Levy's books. The detailed statistics, you're going to need to sign in to see some of this. And for the most part, you can get everything here that is free. Everything of value here, you're not going to really have to pay for, and you just filter it at the top. So they have more. I haven't used it for TikTok, so I don't know how reliable it is, but I've used it for YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter, in my opinion, is super reliable. Instagram is pretty good. But as you can see, the YouTube is hit or miss. I literally copied the Stanford channel and I got Stanford 6909. So little buggy here and there, but bear with it and it will give you the data you need to really fill out this competitive analysis spreadsheet. Now, Grammarly, if you're not familiar with that, it's a very simple tool. It's a desktop and Google plugin. I have it out there for Chrome. It'll make sure you don't make spelling mistakes. It can also analyze your text, synthesize your text, and generate more text. I encourage you to use it. That is a paid tool as well. So you're gonna have to spend some money if you really want to get the most bang for your buck in terms of saving time and stuff like that. Now, before we get into completely forming research questions, this is a blog post on completing a competitive analysis for UX. It's very helpful if you've never done it before. It will go over some of the market gaps and stuff like that, so the support you'll need. But if you've done this before, if you want to just try it and learn as you go, feel free to take a quick glance at that and you'll be fine. So before you decide and go forward with your research, you need to understand what study type you want to do, how much time it's going to take, talk to some researchers, get a real feel for how long and the resources you're going to need, how much it's going to cost. In this case of the LISA program, as I mentioned, people are 0 to 1 early on. The main part of this presentation is going to be going over generative user interviews or customer discovery calls. They're one and the same, in my opinion. We're not going to get too hung up over semantics here. And to gain valuable insights and to do that, you're really going to need to plan ahead. The industry standard for booking interviews, if you're going to be talking to lawyers, doctors, stuff like that, people that are really busy or deemed high status in society, you're going to need to overbook your research by about 20%. So you're going to need to book more participants than you're expecting to account for the drop off rate. The industry standard drop off rate for just in general for interviews is about 15%. So just be aware of that. And we're going to be going over the proper tech stack here today to store your data, to use it, and to synthesize it. So that's going to be covered here, as well as how to schedule and manage these timelines and source these participants effectively. So for the research operations and what to really think about when you're talking to these people, you really should be talking to people you don't have any existing relationship with. That will introduce bias, which if you're going to build a product that is built on false insights, you're going to accrue a lot of tech debt. You're going to spend a bunch of money fixing things rather than if you just spent it up front, you're going to save a ton of money in the long run. There's a bunch of metrics thrown around. If you look on LinkedIn or Google, unfortunately I haven't been able to verify it down to an official academic study, and I haven't seen anyone else do it. Is basically people say if you for every dollar you spend on UX, it's worth $1,000 in the long run, or 10x you'll save of time and all this kind of stuff. Bottom line is, I think we can all agree that if you invest in the upfront and doing the proper research and spend more time on that, you'll build a product that accrues less tech debt over time. It is actually useful for the user's needs rather than just building a solution without a problem. So the main thing to do with this is to actually screen these people out to vet who you should talk to. You're going to create a screener survey of 10 questions or less with 2 open responses, and that's to vet their communication style and how comprehensive their answers are. Now, the reason for that is when you're offering incentives for these surveys and studies, there's a lot of people that just do this for money and just tell you what you want to hear. So to vet that out, you're going to want to really have them put in a little bit of upfront effort and engagement by typing stuff out and not a full multiple choice survey. Now, survey science is a completely separate discipline and it goes very deep. There's people with PhDs on it, etc. So that would have to be a separate presentation, but we can go over a lot about surveys and stuff like that at the end of the presentation here. But when you're conducting discovery interviews and generative interviews, you should aim to interview about 8 to 10 people or persona. So if we're talking about Airbnb, the renter and the host, interview 10 hosts, interview 8 renters or 10 renters. In my experience, that has been perfect. I've uncovered a lot of insights and I start getting repeatable and start finding the patterns. I can already predict what someone's going to say without even having to go to the synthesis part of the research yet after about that 8 to 10 people. Now, if you're wondering, how do I properly incentivize these people? How can I actually know how much to pay them to make it useful to my time and their time? Is a tool for that. So you'll go to the user interviews incentive calculator. So we'll do the Airbnb example. Are your ideal participants B2C? So they're consumers. So is your study moderated or unmoderated? What this means is, are you going to be there to conduct the study, or is it going to be in an automated fashion where you list out all the questions and you send that to them? For instance, is it a type form? Is it a recorded study where they'll do the task and it's recorded on their own using some other tool and you're not there? For instance, let's say we're going to be there conducting the study and is moderated. So it's going to be moderated. Unmoderated tends to be cheaper than moderated, and unmoderated is definitely more scalable because you need more human capital to complete the moderated study. Is your study remote or in person? We're going to do remote. What type of study are you recruiting for? This is going to be a one-to-one session. How long is this session? We'll do 30 to 60 minutes. Why not? And here we did the math. So it's about $80 an hour, the optimal range. So this is a quick way to understand how you should incentivize your interview participants. I've had no problem going 10 to 20% below this. If I'm interviewing a younger demographic, for instance, college students, they'll take any money they can get basically. However, if you are going to be interviewing doctors, for example, I would up this to maybe 120 or 115, something like that. Basically, when you post your study for people to join it, of course, the more money you have there, the more participant respondents you're going to get giving you inquiries to join it. However, you may get people just going there for the money. So it's a fine balance. If you have no responses, you're probably going to need to increase it. But if you have too many, maybe you need to decrease it. It's a very fine line that you'll need to weigh as you go along. But this is a very reliable tool. They update this constantly based on the current market data. So this is the go-to tool for understanding how you should compensate your participants. And the typical fashion for that is just an Amazon gift card. Or if you have a great SaaS tool that everyone wants, you can give them a month off or something like that. And another place you can source these people is Maze. Maze is a good tool. They have resources here. They have a bunch of great blog posts, which we'll be going over later in the presentation. The platform is good. It's mostly for a lot of stuff that's further down the line in the research cycle, like card sorting, tree testing, and prototype testing. But they also have people to recruit. Whereas user interviews the site we were just on is just to recruit people. This has their own platform for conducting research. I'm sure some people on the call have used it. It's quite reliable. It's quite good. They also have some AI integration, but the AI tools we'll be going over are actually more comprehensive than its existing tools in this platform. Okay, great. So when we're going over usability testing, now usability testing is a little bit different. Google found this out as well as Nielsen Norman Group. You can interview 5 to 8 people and it will pretty much give you 70 to 80% of the insights, as we can see here. And at about 15 people, you'll uncover all of the usability issues. And this is per device. So you're going to want to test on web, you're going to want to test on mobile. Those are both separate studies, of course. And you're going to want to recruit for them off these platforms, or this separate platform that I really recommend that I have quite a bit of experience with is User Feel. So now User Feel is a company out of Greece that allows you to conduct moderated and unmoderated studies. So once again, the difference between that is moderated is you're there conducting the study. Unmoderated is you set it up and you just send it to them in a link and they'll complete it. Now, this automatically records the session for you. So you'll give them a list of tasks to complete within the app. It'll then give you a system usability score. This is based on their time on task. So how long it took them to complete the task, how many tasks they completed, and what they felt about the app in the end. So this was a 20-minute duration. This has everything transcribed here. I could rate the tester. I could see their demographics. So 37, United Kingdom. Their experience as a power user. So that's very important to keep in mind. A lot of power users on mobile, especially, will complete a lot of the tasks that you give them. So you're going to want to have your study mixed, where a lot of people that don't use their phone a lot or a lot of power users. I would honestly venture on the side of kind of people that use their phone sparingly to make sure your app is hyper usable.
Okay.
So here we can see that this is what the participants view is. It gives them the scenario to complete as well as the task. So please imagine that you used the Mimi Hearing app test in the past. This is all tasks and scenarios that you will set up as a researcher or founder of your app. You can create a note as you synthesize this. You can download this. You can send this. You can upload it to YouTube. This is stored in the cloud as well, so you have no need to worry. You can access this from anywhere in the world, and it's all timestamped and as well as transcribed. So these are the questions and tasks. So as you see, it's not completed, and this is how long it took, 2 minutes. So these are very important metrics to keep in mind that will incorporate into the system usability score that they do output. This is semi-reliable. I wouldn't rely on it completely because it is an automated thing, and it basically just is fed based on the tasks they complete, the time of test, stuff like that. You need to analyze that for yourself. So I would encourage you to just synthesize the research yourself and take a look at their tone of voice and stuff like that to analyze what they thought was usable and what wasn't. Now, this could be you pay per user on this compared to a lot of the other user testing platforms. I'm sure a lot of people here at big companies are familiar with usertesting.com. They charge about $30,000 to even touch that platform. So this is much more accessible to founders and solo side projects, whatever you want to do. I've used this tool. I've had no problem with it. They've been quite responsive if I've ever had an issue. And we can see examples of moderated tests, which is you'll also join the call with them on this, and it will be sample user test project, and it will be a moderated test. So desktop, you can use this for desktop or mobile. It's actually probably a little easier on mobile. They have an app that you'll go through. What you do need for this, though, caveat is you do need to have a test flight. If you want to use a Figma, you can, but there are other tools for that as well. So this is easiest to use for a test flight, but if you want to use a Figma file, go ahead. As you can see, this is what it looks like for the participant. It's very straightforward, very friendly. They will have their webcam on to record their reactions and talk through everything. And you get a whole hour recording there with 20 tasks. I would encourage you to not go above 15 if it's going to be less than 45 minutes. Just something to keep note of. That's my own personal preference. Of course, do as you will. So it's a very reliable tool to use for your usability testing and user testing. Now we're going to be getting into the fun parts of the presentation and my favorite part. So I've built a custom GPT for asking the right questions, and this is public and it will be launching on the GPT store as it comes out. I can give you access to this now. It is public. So this is a user research assistant, which will help you ask unbiased, provide follow-up questions, and explain what body language to look out for, as well as it will coach you on formulating your research questions. But before we get into that, I want to go over, for anyone who hasn't used large language models in the past, I want to go over how to effectively prompt engineer, as well as what these LLMs are actually capable of, aside from the plugins, just vanilla GPT-4, for example. When we think about LLMs, they have three main operations, and that's reductive, transformational, and generative. So I have examples for each. So reductive, taking a large amount of text and producing smaller output, summarizing text, extraction, removing specific text. If you're looking at a medical journal, for example, just taking out the abstract, stuff like that is very helpful. If you want a full prompt engineering guide, I would really encourage you. And a lot of these examples are taken from David Sharpio's YouTube channel. He's a
where you
very
give it a set
seasoned
of
AI
instructions.
professional. He's very good. I would encourage you to subscribe to his channel, check out his videos. He does a lot of commentary and AI walkthroughs and stuff like that to help you learn about where things are going in the current state of the market. He's great. His prompt engineering masterclass is very helpful. I would encourage you to watch that as well. But these are taken from his slides and they're very helpful. So all you really need to know, if whatever you forget about LLMs, you can reduce things, you can transform things, and of course, as we're all familiar, you can generate things. That's pretty much what most people are familiar with, is the drafting and planning of things as well as the brainstorming. And we can talk about the typical prompt engineering stuff. However, this GPT research assistant that we're about to dive into has been fine tuned and it's been already single shotted to do user research stuff. So you don't really need to tell it act as a expert user researcher or anything like that. It's already there waiting for you. But before we get into that, there is a resource from Maze here on 300 questions to ask your customers or prospective customers and how to ask them. So whether it's a multiple choice, whether it's an open question block, anything like that, over 300, actually 397 questions to ask your customers that are debiased, vetted questions that have been asked in research before that do get results. I've used these before. I can vouch for them. Very good. That's in this presentation as well. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. But now for my favorite part of this demo here today. So I built this over the past couple days. This is a custom GPT as OpenAI just released this feature to build your own GPTs. It is multimodal, so you can feed this PDFs, you can feed this images, stuff like that. But let's say, give me questions to ask a SpaceX engineer about their day today. I am building a space mining company. Let's do something outlandish like that and see how it still responds. It's going to be very effective. So I didn't even specify that it's a discovery interview, a usability testing interview. Let's see what it comes up with. So it's going to give me a question. It's going to give me a follow-up to that question, as well as the body language to observe with that question, which is very helpful. Now, it will also coach you if you're going to ask a question that is not helpful, and it will tell you how to improve that question as well. So I'll give you an example of that after it stops filling this out. And on your first prompt here, it will typically give you about 5 to 10 questions just based on how it's feeling, really. So let's see what it'll give us right now. Here at the end, we have some coaching. Remember, avoid leading questions. So suggest specific answer, cultural biases. So I have alerted this to be aware of the cultural biases, which is a big bias in user research. It uses neutral language to ensure that you're not biasing your participant one way or the other. It will avoid biased language in all facets. It will also make sure you don't ask double barrel questions. It will also, if you're going to ask a dumb question, for example, it will tell you that. It will also tell you that if you're going to ask questions that are deemed pointless, it will say, hey, let's get back on track here and ask questions more relevant. So, for instance, if you're working on a super technical topic like this, space mining, for example, something outlandish, it will tell you that all these questions are pretty relevant. So if I want 100 follow-up questions to question 5, it will give me that. But if I'm interviewing someone about like their favorite drink, for example, and I say, hey, give me 100 follow-up questions, it's going to say that's a little over specific there. It's not going to help you in your research. It's going to be repeated too much and be a waste of time. So if I say, what do you think of this question? This is just an easy one. Do you drink beer and do you drink it on Fridays? It's going to coach me on why this is a bad question. Let's see what it coaches us with. The question you propose, you drink beer, you drink on Fridays, could potentially lead to biased or uncomfortable responses. It may make the interview you feel that there is a correct answer or that the personal habits are being judged. This is very relevant, and of course, that's true. That's a double barrel question. You should never ask that in user research. And it will also revise the question, give you a proper follow up to that question, and explain the body language you observe. But it also tells me the body language that it can make them uncomfortable. So it will explain that for the most part, but you can count on this every single time to give you a revised question to follow up and body language to observe. Once again, this is public. I can give this to you, and this will be on the GPT store. All I ask is that you do share this and you do give me feedback because I will be tuning this and improving this as we go. But before we get into that, I encourage everyone, of course, to use Zoom. I think it's a little bit easier than Google Hangouts because the recordings are stored automatically in the cloud. That's why I prefer to use it. And just a one-click button, I just click cloud record and we're all set to go. So this is going to be just an example of a study I did for Dune Analytics, which is a crypto company. I was doing this for my master's as well. So you just basically get a quick glimpse of what it looks like when these are synthesized and put into a video for your clients. I'm going to turn it down a bit because this video was a little bit loud. And we don't need to watch the whole thing, just get a good feel of it really quick.
For
Which
this,
UI did you prefer? Did you mention? Yeah, the Figma one or the Dune one, the live one?
no, the Figma one looks great actually.
Okay.
It's much more accessible.
I, to be honest, like the ordering of the dashboards on Dude's original site a little better than what you put together on Figma with the space in between. You get more per page, which I think is always a little bit better. Let's see if I make it smaller. Do they still? Okay, it looks like it's always the same number, or at least a common number. Because I think if you adding the space might look nice, but I think the priority is seeing more items up here, and it is clean right now the way it is.
Got it. That's great feedback.
Yeah, because
So basically, as you can see there, I have highlighted moments of feedback that I wanted to share with my team and the client. I have it transcribed, annotated, and edited. That's a little bit more advanced in the tool we're going to be going over today, which is Dovetail. It's an all-encompassing tool. The tool I used for this was Descript, but I have a video editing background, so it's easier. Just Dovetail is just, one swipe and you can get the whole highlight, which we will go over momentarily. But I encourage everyone, whether they're a founder or product manager, designer, whatever, to really implement it in this fashion and share it. Sharing a video and sharing the highlights is much easier. It gives a lot more context than just sharing raw numbers data. Especially for a qualitative interview like this, you really want to understand their tone of voice. You really want to see how they react to certain tasks and certain things like that. That tends to be the best way to win over stakeholders in my experience. I encourage you to try it out. Now, next we will be going over the sizing the data. So we're going to head into a tool called Dovetail. Now, this is also a paid tool, but you get like a 2-week free trial. So it's enough to run a study very quickly. So here's what the homepage looks like. It's very simple to use. If you need any help, you could hit me up. We're going to be just simply going over a sample video and what it looks like. So I'm going to mute this, but we can imagine that this is a 1-minute video, but it could take hours of long a video. It doesn't really matter. So you're going to film your Zoom call. You're going to take it into Dovetail. And as you can see, it's automatically transcribed. And a quick thing I can do is I can run this automation that will do a general sentiment of the entire video. And it will analyze every single word using their language model if it has a negative connotation or a positive connotation. Of course, just due to the way LLMs work, it may not always have the general positive sentiment or negative sentiment based on the previous word or in the correct context, right? So you're going to need to go over the transcript yourself. It's not going to fully automate your job. You're going to need to definitely take a look at it. However, it does give you a good starting point. And this is definitely the best way to get started if you've never done anything like this before. So once I've analyzed it, it will then go through this. These are pretty automated. This was a positive one. I didn't put that there. I did put this negative one as an example. So if I say that Emily, for instance, here said, often people upload interviews and recording meetings. I think this is a positive one. So I'm going to use this as a positive tag. I could create a neutral tag. If I want to create a neutral tag, that was pretty neutral. It wasn't positive or negative. So I can keep that there. So you're going to go through this and you're going to tag all of the positive and negative things that they said. If there's certain keywords that you want to be alerted. What you can do is you could take this entire transcript and you could take that into GPT or Perplexity, any of the tools that we've gone over, say, hey, how many times does the word bad come up in this transcript? It'll then take it and you have 5 accounts of bad. Use that as a metric, stuff like that. So however you want to analyze your themes here, you can do that. This is just the easiest tool to get started with, but I encourage you taking the transcript and putting it into another language model as well. But the easiest way to share this is just simply like this. So I'll take the positive one, and as I can see, there's 4 positive highlights, and here are all the positive ones. And if I want to share this with my team, I'll just literally click share, say, hey, add their emails. Hey, check out what Emily said. She said this about our sign up page. She said this about the onboarding flow. So it's very easy, very quick. You can literally go from doing a user interview in the morning to having it synthesized at by the afternoon and sharing it by end of day, the actual interview participants, as well as their sayings, if they're going through a demo of something, all of that with the tools we shared today, you can complete a user study in definitely a week. If you manage your schedule correctly, you could have everything synthesized and shared. I encourage you to share these findings early on with your team. It's very helpful. And you can add this to an insight. So if you want to have an insight, which I have, is people really hate our sign up page as a recent insight. Now, this is basically just like grouping things and starting a folder. It's their word of calling insights or their word of calling grouped folders and things like that. So if I want to combine studies, I can mix and match all projects. So if I'm running a study about the sign up page, a study about the settings page, for example, or a generative interview, which you've gone, I could put that all into one folder, which was called this untitled group here. I can put all different tags here, combine them. So it doesn't have to live within that one video. I can combine multiple different studies at once, and this is a research repository, so it will remain here. It's cloud storage. You can access it anytime. Definitely back up everything in the cloud, of course. Also, if you have enough space on your local hard drive, I encourage you to store it there as well. I have some nightmare stories of myself of having to do some recovery of losing stuff like that. All your insights will be loaded here. All your team can join. It's quite cheap. 5 seats, I believe, is like you can check the pricing. Let's see. It's not bad. Once I'm at $25 for 3 users, Yearly, monthly is $30. So definitely do it, even if it's just for one study. You get that free trial, which is enough to run one study. So I would encourage you to do that. This is also industry standard. An alternative to this is, yeah, you have Google Drive, Dropbox, in your local storage. It's very fragmented. It takes too much time. And then also you have to be quite good at video editing to really edit the other videos into script and get good at that. Whereas here, I could just create a highlight reel. You click reel, you feed it the videos. And as I showed you before, you can get all the clips like that and share them, put them into different folders, stuff like that. So I encourage you to use this tool. And now that is really, once you get this stuff and you get all your themes down, like you get all your negative tags and you get all the themes down, what you're going to do is you're going to take the script, the transcript, and the quotes. So your insights, which mine was, she really hates our user flow for the sign up, create a highlight reel, whatever you want to do. And I can take this insight, right? Or her quote. Let's just say she said you could try this yourself as a quote. I can take that and I'm going to take it into Figma. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create these artifacts based on the insights. Now there's a bunch of different tools we're going to use for this, but to get started, we're going to start with Figma. So if you've never used Figma, don't worry. It's not that scary. It's very usable. I'm going to switch my screen to the Figma and we're going to get started with that and analyzing this using a few AI plugins that will save us a ton of time. So here is the Figma. Now what you're going to want to do is you could just simply type in FigJam, there's this prompt right here that says AI beta. You will probably still have this if you're not a paid user. And here I'll just say synthesize my user interviews. I'll generate that and it will generate a workshop. And of course, you're going to add to this, especially if you're a usability professional, you'll know what to do. He will add the key insights and themes. It'll generate the entire workshop I need to run with my team. I can also set as much time as I want, the music time. I'm going to add, this would need to be like an hour. So I'll just pretend that's at 60. We can edit like that. And then I can set some music if I want to. I don't like to work with music in FigJam, but here we have all the things. Let me just make this text bigger so we can see. So you're going to take this with your team or your design facilitator. That would be best. So you can take the key findings and all the stuff you had Dovetail, for instance, all the themes, all the quotes. I'm just going to copy and paste that here. So this is something I copy paste from Dovetail. I'm going to put that there. Of course, this text will be much more readable at the time. And you're going to build a persona, which is the thing we're on Embark right now in the Lisa program. But to build a persona, what we're actually going to do is we're going to take all of the insights that we got from these interviews. And now when they sign up, if you're going to use something like user interviews, all of their data will be on their profile. So their age, location, occupation, salary, all that stuff. You're going to take all the info that you can gather either from the interview or their public profile beforehand, and you're going to take it and you're going to go to coco.ai, which is a Figma plugin. Now, there is a free trial for this as well. I have the paid version, but it's literally the same thing as the free trial, and it's free for about a week. So I encourage you to do that. And you're going to put in all your persona demographics here. You're going to put in the scenarios that they listed. So I only use Airbnb when I'm on vacation, or I use it for work trips, the Airbnb example that we've been using. But here we're going to use the example of a 45-year-old eco tour guide in New Delhi, India, and he desires an intuitive act for promoting ecotourism. Now, we're going to use a persona card. So the persona board is for the workshops when you're still working it out. That's, of course, what you're going to be doing anyway. But to get started, I prefer personally to get a persona card and then just start sharing this early and often with your team. And the persona is not something that you stop working on. You're going to continually work on this. So this, based on, of course, based on the interview data you have, you're going to click generate. This also uses a language model that will spit out a persona for you to start working on. Now, this is of course not going to be perfect, but it will get you like 25 to 30% of the way there, which will, of course, will build on based on your actual data. And we can see here what it spits out. This one tends to take a little bit of time to generate. It will take a minute or two. This one was a little quick. So we can see all the needs, the goals, the motivations. And then here it spits out this. And of course, this is instantly editable. I can edit this, change it around, and now I have a shareable persona based on my interviews that I just did within a minute or so. So I could take this entire thing, Command C that, put it into the FigJam. If you want to take the persona board from it and still work on it here, you can do that as well. paste it here and start working on that in a workshop with your team. That's a really good one. I use Coco AI for that as well. And of course, this is in the cloud. Don't need to worry about ever losing it. And you can generate additional things with this. So if I want to generate a user journey map, I can do that as well. So if I'm working on my persona user journey at the same time, it'll then generate a user journey template for me to work on here. So based on that persona, start building the journey. Another very helpful thing is the Figma community. So if I just want to see user journey template, these tend to be better than the AI ones but that's for more of a finished product. I prefer to do everything custom. In my opinion, I think it changes from project to project, but if you want to get started quickly, you could do something like this. Use a community. These have obviously been used thousands of times across projects, so they're quite vetted. This is a very basic one. You'll track their emotions over time, their experience. This is editable as well, move it all around. So you don't have to do a lot of things manually. You can just input your data and have something to share with your team, especially if you're a non-designer and you're not familiar with this stuff. It's very easy to get started. Now, once you have all of that stuff, I want to show you another exciting thing. But before we move on to a separate kind of tool, I want to pause questions or comments or anything like that. Okay, great. Once you have this done, an interesting thing to do is you could generate a user flow here. However, it's really good. And if you're familiar with user flow as a usability professional, by all means, conduct it yourself. But if you're a first time founder, you haven't really been in the product space for a while, I'm going to switch my window to a different screen. This is a really cool GPT plugin as well that is very new and is very helpful. I'm going to be going over another tool. It's called diagrams, and this one's especially good for wire flows and mind maps. So I will be sharing this. Let's see. Okay. So here I have, this is on the GPT plugin store. You're going to need GPT Plus for this. So I have AI diagrams and I say I am building Airbnb for motorcycles. Create me a sign up user flow. If I'm building Airbnb for motorcycles, create me a sign up user flow. GPT is going to think, once again, I have the AI diagrams. This is from a company called Whimsical, which I'm sure you've heard about them. If you haven't, they're basically another just tool similar to Figma, but it's for more low fidelity stuff like that. So it's going to be using AI diagrams. It's going to spit out something that I have a great starting point with. Might take a little bit of time here. So here's a sign up flow chart for motorcycle diagram, motorcycle rental platform. So here it spits it out. User visits website, select sign up option, enter personal information, choose password. Now, this is a great starting point. That's pretty accurate. It's definitely going to miss some steps. It's not, I didn't give it a super in-depth prompt, right? I just want to show you exactly what's possible. So once it spits this out, in order to edit this, you're just going to take it to Whimsical. So I'm going to click take me to Whimsical here. And of course, I can start editing this as soon as I want to my heart's desire, move it all around. If I want to start wireframing, for example, I could just start wireframing it. I could start creating a wire flow, which is a mix of a wire of this user flow and wireframes. So I could start doing that, start doing the sign up page there, the website, move this all around. And of course, I could share this link. This is all free too. I'm not even a pro member. So you can do all this for free. And that's how easy it is to get started very quickly. And you can generate things with AI if you want, a mind map. You can also do mind maps on GPT with the plugin. So all of this is easy to get started. What I would recommend you do is I would take this, and then once this is set up, once you're comfortable with this, I would take this into Figma and start editing it there as well. Just copy it over, or you can do it completely here, take a screenshot of it, then put that into your deck or Figma, something like that. I know we got about 10 minutes left. In the sake of time, I'll move on to presenting the findings in the easiest way possible, presenting to stakeholders, investors, etc. So this is a great tool. I encourage you to get started with that. Very quick, very easy to use. We'll go back to presenting to stakeholders. Creating these artifacts, once again, these Figma plugins, Coco. I do want to show you another one. I'll have to show it to you a little bit later, but it's similar to user journeys. It's just a different option compared to Whimsical. It's very similar. So presenting to stakeholders, if you are still using, I know my screen I'm on a massive widescreen right now, so this may be a little bit big for you to see. However, if you are still using Google Slides, if you're still using Keynote, stuff like that, those tools compared to these modern tools are pretty ancient. You have to be using these modern pitch deck and slide deck tools with AI. They'll help get you started very quickly, very efficiently. My favorite one is Pitch. This presentation is made in Gamma, and there's also called Tome. It's very simple. And for any entrepreneurs here, the easiest thing to think about when you're pitching investors is 3 to 4 minutes. Put your problem, put your solution, your market, your team, and why you. That was given to me by the Boost VC Startup Accelerator in San Mateo. That's the advice I was given. It's worked quite well for the founders that I've consulted as well. For instance, I just want to give a really quick demo of what's possible with these tools. So we'll go to Tome, for example. Actually, you know what? We'll go to Gamma. Gamma's probably my favorite, and pitch.com. So we'll just create a new one. We'll do generate a prompt, and we'll click presentation. Give me a presentation about my Airbnb, actually no, my Uber for motorcycles to venture capitalists to raise funding. Of course, we don't need to worry about the spelling mistakes. It will copy it no matter what, and it will fix it. So we'll do a presentation, it'll enter it, and it'll give me the outline. So here's the outline for me. Introduction, overview. Yep, let's say that looks good. Continue. Here I'll select the theme. A lot of these look pretty solid in my opinion from a design perspective. Some of them not so much, but most of them do. So we'll click this one. This is a theme preview. Boom, continue. Making some magic. And here we go. I have a presentation that I can edit very quickly, share with investors, share with my team. And what was that? Less than 45 seconds. And you're going to put in all the data you got from these studies, share it with stakeholders. You can export it to a Keynote. You can export it to a Google Slides. You can do all of that. All of this stuff uses auto layout, so you can't really mess up the design look of it. Of course, this is using an iframe right now, so you can't see the whole presentation, but that's how easy it is to get started. I can edit it with AI. I can chat with the slide to add more things to it. I can text format. I can do everything I want, pretty much full customization, present it. I know it looks a little weird right now, but that's because I was on a full widescreen view, but I did change it. So here you go. See what it looks like. Timelines, everything on there, embed websites, anything you want, Figma files, wireframes, it's all there. That's how to get started presenting things very quickly, very rapidly, prototyping, presentations, getting feedback. Tome is very useful for very quick, I would say less than 5 slides. Pitch.com is my absolute favorite. If I want something super professional, 20 plus slides, I'll use Pitch. If I want something in the middle, somewhere what we're doing right now, I use Gamma for this. It's very helpful. And once again, the conclusion for your user research timeline and how you should think about things is right here. Define your research goals, create the research plan. Take a look at this timeline as a reference. And thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your time.